Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Lower League Look League One preview podcast. My name is Sam, and this week we are joined by Callum. Hello, Callum.
Hi, Sam. How are we?
I'm not too bad, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad. I'm coming off very minimal sleep the night before. I think I only had 2 hours. It's come out of nowhere. So if my words get a bit mixed up, please forgive me.
I'm sure we'll be fine as long as we don't get nicknames of teams mixed up. I'm sure you'll be fine. Uh,
Yeah,
So,
let's.
in terms of as this is being a sort of a new podcast here on the Lower League Look, in terms of the concept, what we've done, we've picked four big games we think from League One this weekend. We're going to do a deeper dive into them, and then we'll do predictions of the other 8 League One games. Also covering a bit of news that's happened in between the review show, which was on Monday, and today, as this is being recorded on Wednesday. So we're going to quickly cover some of the games that happened last night. Some big games at the bottom of the league. We'll start off with Fleetwood. They got a 2-0 victory away at Bristol Rovers, meaning they have now won 2 in a row. Callum,
I,
do we think Fleetwood are back in the hunt to stay up?
I mean they've not been outside the relegation zone since I think it's game week 2 or like the 12th of August. So if they do manage to pull it off, I think it'll be one of the greatest escapes in well, at least I can remember, but I don't have a great memory. But I don't know. It's one of them. You look at the underlying statistics, and okay, Charlie Adam, I think it's his first managerial job, so getting 2 wins on the row, especially at Bristol Rovers, who have impressed a few people recently. They're not doing too bad themselves. It looks good on paper. Just is it too little, too late? I'm not entirely sure. I don't think it's enough to save them from relegation. But as a Lincoln City fan, it's a bit concerning they're hitting a bit of form ahead of this weekend. But we'll get onto that in a bit.
Yeah. So the other League One game last night, we had Reading. They got a valuable 3 points away at Stevenage, taking them outside of the bottom four. Steve Evans was obviously in my Steve Evans bingo game quite critical of the referee once again. Um, but for Reading, they are now outside the bottom four. And to be honest, Reading have actually only, I believe, lost one in like their last 11. They've drawn a lot of them, but they're pretty consistently getting results now.
I say I must apologise to a few of my Reading fans friends. I did say that they'd probably lose 3-0 to Stevenage, and I got a message at 10 o'clock last night saying, "Have you got anything to say, Callum?" And I'm like, "Well, I apologise, but no, Reading, they're one of them teams that, of course, they look quite good a lot of the time. They're not a poor side, obviously hampered by a lot of off the field issues, as is very well documented." So yeah, I'm quite confident that Reading will probably avoid the drop come the end of the season. It's just whether they can now kick on. You can see what they can do against the Steve Evans side in Stevenage. Can they? Again, it's all about that consistency, isn't it? No matter what level of this league you are, you just want to get that consistency, and that'll be key for Reading towards the end of the season now.
100%, and they've got to keep their key players in Harvey Nibbs and Femi Aziz just fit, basically.
Yeah.
There was 2 other games in League One as 2 games were postponed in Burton, Cheltenham, and Cambridge and Bolton. So the team replacing Reading in the bottom four was Port Vale after they were defeated 1-0 by Leyton Orient. The O's are now 1 defeat in 12, I believe it now is, and are the most informed team in League One in the past 10 games. Port Vale, on the other hand, yeah, they're pretty poor. Haven't got a lot going forward. The fans actually booed one of their own strikers off the pitch when he came off injured yesterday. And when your goalkeeper is man of the match, I think it says a lot about your performance. But we'll get on to Port Vale in a little bit because they obviously sacked Andy Crosby on Monday, which was in the review show. But in terms of an appointment for Port Vale, who do we think is a decent appointment for Port Vale? Obviously,
There's
Gareth Ainsworth's name's been thrown around a little bit.
there's one name, isn't there, that's skyrocketed, I think, to the top of the odds, and that is obviously ex-Lincoln City manager Mark Kennedy. I think he knows how to set up a team. For all the criticisms Kennedy Ball got at Lincoln, he knows how to set up a team defensively resolute. That 5 at the back, which, well, a lot of people argue it's 3, but 5 at the back, it is very good. And you'd think for a Port Vale side, that probably it does weirdly, as I'm talking about it now, I thought I thought going into this rant here that I thought Mark Kennedy won't ever get a job in League One again, but you actually look at it, I genuinely it probably will be a wise appointment. I've seen Port Vale put a statement out, didn't they,
Mhm.
earlier today? I've only scanned through and not a proper look at it, but it looks like they really need to find their footing again to make sure they're safe for this season.
Yeah, I think the statement was more pleading to the fans to actually stay with the club rather than just hurling abuse at them. And they went quite in depth about Darrell Clark and how he got sacked last season, which I still to this day maintain that it was a weird sacking at the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
The other game that was actually played in League One was Exeter City. They continued a pretty decent run with 3 wins in 4 with a 2-1 victory over Peterborough, who are now winless in 3 and 2 defeats in a row with another red card for Peterborough. So Exeter are now climbing the table and sit in 14th place now, and Peterborough have now played the same amount of games as second place Derby. So in regards to Peterborough, they have obviously 3 points off second place with no games in hand. Is this going to be the start of the Peterborough bottle, shall we say, like it was last season?
I mean, it was only a matter of weeks ago, wasn't it? Really, that everyone was saying Peterborough the most in-form side in the league, and well, I hate to say it, but that draw was against Lincoln City. So ever since that cup final draw against Lincoln City, they've lost 2 other cup finals. I don't think you can tell that I'm a bit bitter about Darren Ferguson's comments post-match, but no, like we say, it's all about momentum in a league like League One. And if you're not, especially if you're pushing at the top, if you're winless in 3, that is probably the decider between automatic and playoffs. I don't think there are any risk of slipping out of the top 6, but I do think come the end of the season, it'll be between those 3 that are currently at the top now. I do think it'll be Bolton, Derby, and Portsmouth battling it out.
No
A bit
Pompey
of,
bottle.
no, well, I'd love to see it personally, but no, I don't think so. I will say thoughts for Bolton fans who, of course, travelled all the way down to Cambridge only for that game to get abandoned in the 9th minute, I believe it was.
Yes, if you've seen any of the videos of it, it was quite funny. They just started thinking they wanted more groundsmen on the pitch and stuff like that. But it was the weather conditions were pretty horrendous. And obviously Burton Cheltenham was also postponed about 90 minutes. I think it was before kickoff.
Yeah.
So 2 teams that probably could do with the points as well. So that game will obviously be rearranged for some point in February. When, I don't know if it's been announced yet, but I suspect it'll be in a pretty hectic sort of schedule this sort of month.
Yeah.
So we're going to move on to the first of the 4 deep dive games, so to speak. And we're going to go with Blackpool versus Oxford, a battle for the top 6. So Callum, what have you got for us on this game?
Yeah, I've said I think this one it's kind of the battle of the playoffs, isn't it? If either of these teams wants to keep track with those playoffs, they really need to. It's a must win for either. Of course, you look at Blackpool. They're 6 points off Stevenage, and they have played a game more, but they're still within that touching distance. Blackpool, they've got a 100% record of losing at home when conceding first. So you kind of get the impression the first goal in this game is crucial because Oxford have lost 75% of games at home when they've conceded first as well. So it's I think that's away, sorry. So the first goal in this match is crucial for both teams, regardless of what happens, I think.
Yeah, so I had a look at So Blackpool actually have the strongest home record in terms of points in the league, which did surprise me, to be honest. Oxford have the 7th best away form, but they've only actually drawn 1 away game, so they either win or lose away from home, it seems. But I think the most surprising statistic for me in the last 10 games in all competitions, Jordan Rhodes has only scored the 1 solitary goal.
Yeah, I was looking at the stats for this, and I'm like, what's happened? Because a lot of teams are built around that one key striker, and when that one key striker's not scoring goals, you often see them slip down the table, and that that's probably what's happening here. But Blackpool, I think I've always had a bit of a soft spot for Blackpool when I was getting into football. That was when Blackpool were in the Premier League. So I've always had a bit of a soft spot for Blackpool. So I like to see them do well. And obviously Oxford, I think this season will be known for them as a season of two halves. I think this weekend is Des Buckingham's. This is the halfway stage. So this is his 19th league game, at least in charge. And in that time, he's won 6 and lost 8. Compare that to Liam Manning, who of course won 12 and lost 5. So that huge swing, isn't it? Really, in results, it's a tale of two halves, isn't it, for Oxford?
Yeah, it's a season that started with so much promise for them, and they kind of just fell away. Like we've said before, a lot of them players obviously probably just came in for Liam Manning. They've obviously come in, and Des Buckingham as a supporter of the football club. Sometimes these things just don't work. I had a look at their recently played formations. In the last 10 games, he's played 3-4-3 or whatever sort of way you call it nowadays. He's played 4-4-2. He's played 4-2-3-1. So, and I still can't. They've had possession in some of these games, and they've had like 35% possession in some of these games. So I can't work out if they're a counter-attacking team, a possession-based team. They don't seem to have any sort of identity, and I know when you're taking over a club that's doing really well, it's really difficult to stamp your own ideas on the way that you want to play because they're doing well. But they're not playing the way Liam Manning was playing, and they're kind of not playing, unless this is the Des Buckingham way, and have no identity and just hope that you actually win games. But they just seem a bit all over the place at the moment. And obviously, you've got the individual quality of Brannigan and Ruben Rodriguez, but individual quality can only obviously bail you out set amounts of times.
Yeah. I think it feeds into a bit of not desperation, but a bit of we don't know what the best way to go is. You look at Oxford in the last 15 minutes of games, they've scored 19 and conceded 16, which in that segment is a huge outlier. So it kind of feeds into this sense of we're scrambling to find the solution. We don't know what's happening, and we're slowly losing track to the team around us. Only one win in the last 5, and that's the lowest of all teams in the top 11. So in the last 5 games, so they're really struggling to find that, again, like we say, consistency.
Yeah,
that seems to be the key word today for me, anyway.
I think it's this point of the season, isn't it, where teams at the top start to find these silly little results where they'll go and lose to a Port Vale or a Fleetwood, and these teams at the bottom start to pick up points, and it all starts to congest really quickly. And for teams like probably Blackpool, who are 6 points off, Leyton Orient, Bristol Rovers, they're all thinking, oh, hello, we have a little bit of a chance of getting the playoffs here if we put a consistent run together. And these little teams that put that run towards the end of the season and sneak into 6th usually do quite well in the playoffs because they've got all that momentum behind them as well.
Yeah, and Oxford don't like a clean sheet either. They've only kept 2 clean sheets away from home all season. So I don't know. Like, in terms of how I think this game will go, I think Blackpool might sneak it 2-1.
Okay.
And I think it might be a late goal. We're talking in that 80th minute or so, but I would go with a 2-1 to the Blackpool on that one personally. I don't know about you, Sam.
I've gone for 3-1. And what we're going to do, we're going to have a little competition. When we predict the scores, I'm going to write all of these down, and then we'll come back next week and we'll see who's going to get the most points. And then at the end of the season, we'll top them all up and we'll do something for whoever gets the most points or something.
That worries me because I fare notoriously bad in predictions. So
just quickly on the XG for both teams, Blackpool have got the 4th most XG in the league with 41.8 expected goals, and XG conceded, they have the 16th best in terms of they've conceded 32.9, and for Oxford they sit mid-table for XG with 36.4, and in terms of XG conceded, they have conceded 32.7, which is the 18th best in terms of, that means they're probably, I think, 8th. If 24 minus 8 is 18, they have the 8th best. So that's the way it weirdly metrics it out. And when I write a number down, that's how it comes out. So Cal's gone for a 2-1 victory to Blackpool, and I have gone for a 3-1 victory for Blackpool.
Watch Oxford win this one now.
Oh yeah, it'll either be 0-0 and Oxford will actually keep a clean sheet away from home, or Oxford are just going to steamroll them. That's normally the way these predictions go.
Yeah, it's just our luck.
Yeah. So the next game we're going to cover is Reading versus Charlton, a huge, huge game at the bottom of League One. So we'll start off with the managerial news at Charlton Athletic, with Nathan Jones being announced as manager, and their attacker Khan, who also signed a new long-term contract today. So Nathan Jones, good appointment for Charlton?
I think it's a bit of a coup. I genuinely think he's a bit of a coup. Of course, it didn't go hugely well in the Premier League for him. But of course, yeah, I just think in terms of a manager that might be there for a project, and of course he's a name that a lot of people know the name Nathan Jones, whether that's for good or for worse, decide amongst yourselves. But he is certainly a name for League One Charlton. Whether he's used to that relegation scrap, it might get nice and dirty at times, I suppose, down at the bottom of League One. So whether his style of football will suit Charlton for that, I don't know. But it's a long-term contract, so there's certainly the feeling that it's going to be a bit of a project for them.
Be a project in League Two if they're not careful. So in terms of Nathan Jones' managerial career, obviously he started at Luton Town. He was there for just literally over 3 years, winning 51.2% of his 170 games. He then obviously had a less than fruitful spell at Stoke City, which I think you can look at one of two ways. It's not gone well for Stoke with any manager since they've been relegated. He then returned to Luton Town. Was there for another 133 games. Obviously, did really, really well to get them fighting at the top of the Championship. And then Rob Edwards obviously came in and finished the job. And then he left for Premier League Southampton and was shit. Other than that that result against Manchester City, which everyone remembers, it was pretty poor. So over his career, he's managed 357. Yeah. This is a source of Wikipedia. So 357 games in charge, 153 wins, 99 draws, and 105 losses. So it's a pretty decent managerial record.
Whether he can do it with Charlton Athletic, of course, with how far down the table they are, I guess that remains to be seen. But I think, yeah, like I say, in terms of a manager that you'd like to, not build a team around, but one that could be there for a bit of a, I don't want to call it a rebuild, but that is in essence what it is. You'd like to. There's only a few players I think a lot of Charlton Athletic fans would keep.
Yeah, it'd be a bit awkward when Charlie Medlin announces that Charlton are doing a Charlton Till I Die on Netflix, and so it'll get for this season, just going thinking they're going to get promoted, and they've had 3 managers, and it's all going tits up.
Yeah.
So we've got obviously Reading, who we mentioned a little bit earlier, now sit outside the bottom 4. In terms of this game, with Nathan Jones going in, he is a motivator, but he also says how he feels. And that can work one or two ways with a team that is devoid of confidence. It can either give them a kick up the arse, which they probably need, because Michael Abhun is the most dreary man I think I've ever listened to do a post-match conference. Because he'll say how he feels. He don't pull no punches. Or it'll work the complete opposite way, and it will completely ruin sort of any little bit of confidence the players have. I think the only saving grace for Charlton is they arguably have one of the best strike partnerships in the league in Alfie May and Freddie Ladapo.
I'd advise Nathan Jones just not to do post-match press conferences because I seem to remember there was quite a few of those blunders. So keep that motivational speaking into in the dressing room. That's if it works. But if he doesn't get a result here, and Port Vale scrape a win, then Charlton are in the bottom 4. That's how serious the conversation. That's how serious this match is. Charlton could end this week in the bottom 4 if results go against them.
And everyone says clubs like Charlton, clubs like Charlton. You've got to remember, I know Bolton had financial difficulties, but Bolton Wanderers were also in League Two. Portsmouth, again, with financial difficulties, were in League Two. You can get relegated and be a big name, so to speak.
Yeah.
I do personally think they will be fine, but never
Everyone said
certain.
that. I mean,
Yeah,
yeah, you say that about Leicester last year, didn't you? I was really naive and thinking, yeah, they'll pull it out. They'll be fine. They'll be fine. But football's football. You can't get
yep,
complacent. I don't think.
yep. And obviously, like we mentioned earlier, Reading have one defeat in 11, so they're not going to be no pushovers either. Ruben Sellers seems to have got that unity in the dressing room now. Yes, they lost Tom McIntyre to Portsmouth. They lost Tom Holmes to Luton, but obviously got him back. And they lost one more defender, but for the life of me, I can't remember who it was. So I really think I reckon I've gone for a 1-1 draw in this game personally, just because I think Reading are pretty decent at home. Their home form is the 8th best with 7 wins, 4 draws, and 4 losses. And Charlton's away form is the 18th best, with 1 win away from home, 7 draws, and 6 losses. But both teams can score goals. Charlton have obviously scored 43. Reading have conceded 38. And Charlton have conceded the 7th most XG. So they're pretty solid defensively, with Reading in mid-table with XG with 36.9. So they seem to create a few chances, but they've both conceded over 5 more goals than they've expected to as well. Which is never a good sign, really, because it means they're conceding too many chances at the same time.
So on that Ruben Sellers point, I've got a lot of respect for him. You know, a lot of managers in that situation could easily just cower and give up and leave. But the fact that he's kept that side together as much as he can, not just in terms of personnel, but in terms of, you know, that morale, it is really good. And I do think, you know, we could see a Reading win. I wouldn't put it
Ooh.
against them to sneak it 2-1. I really
See?
wouldn't. I don't think Nathan Jones has had chance to really imprint his philosophy. But then at the end of the day, like you say, if Charlton have got the personnel quality, were they just not playing for Appleton? You know, we could see Charlton just smack him 3-0. You know, it genuinely could go either of the way, and that's the curse of the new manager, I think.
Yeah, and the reverse fixture of this, Charlton actually smacked them 4-0, but I think Reading have come quite a long way since then. So, because if you added, let's say we gave Reading their 4-point deducted points, they would be on 35 with their goal difference would actually put them 15th. So it doesn't change the table as much, but then 4 points that could come in quite handy towards the end of the season if they.
So they're definitely not a bad side, Reading.
No.
But because of how scrappy it is at the bottom, you know, you look how tight it is from 21st all the way to you know, well, Lincoln City in 12th. There's 8 points.
Mm.
It's very scrappy, and a win can really make the difference. You know, if those teams didn't pick up a result last week, you know, almost that 19th to 12th is almost flip reversed. If the teams don't pick up results like they did in their previous fixture. So that's the nature of EFL football, and that's why we love it, I suppose.
I think the more concerning thing for Charlton as well is they've used the most players in the league as well. They've used 39 players this season, which is 6 more than anyone else. And that team who have used the second most is Carlisle, who obviously signed near enough a brand new squad in January. So that is obviously not good for anything.
Yeah, we say about Oxford not knowing their best team, their best formation at the moment, but that kind of gets exemplified when you look further down the table, doesn't it, I suppose?
Yeah. Right, so we've both gone I've gone for a draw and you've gone for a 2-1 Reading win.
So to make up for the defeat I forecasted them midweek, to get the Reading fans back on side, I'll give you the win this week.
So what we're going to do, we're going to quickly go to an ad break, and then we'll be back shortly, and then we'll continue our preview of the weekend's games. And welcome back to the League One preview show. So the next game we are going to cover is Barnsley versus Leyton Orient, and there is a reason I have chosen this game, mainly because not because I support them. Before everyone starts having a go at me,
Has it got something to do with the T-shirt you wear?
oh yes, no. So Barnsley are currently fifth in League One. They have 53 points. All I've seen on Twitter after last night's victory against Port Vale is Leyton Orient are 7 points off the playoffs. Good, yes, that is factually correct. We are 7 points off the playoffs. But we have to play Blackpool. We have to play Oxford. We have to play Stevenage. We have to play Barnsley. We have to play Peterborough. And we have to play Derby. We have to play everyone above us. And with the form we're in, we've beaten Portsmouth and we've beaten Bolton. I don't think we'll get top six, personally. A lot of our fans now think we do because football is a very reactionary sport. 12 weeks ago, we were calling for Wellens to, or some of them were calling for Wellens to leave the football club because that's what football is like. And all of a sudden, he's a hero again. So, yes, we are in amazing form, the only unbeaten League One side. But Barnsley, yes, they haven't won in 2, but they've got a striker who is the joint top scorer in the league in Devante Cole. And you give him any sniff of goal, and he is going to score. And we did concede a couple of dodgy chances to Port Vale last night, which a better team like Barnsley will take. They've got obviously Herbie Kane, Jonathan Russell, Nicky Cadden. We're talking experienced League One players and Championship players to some degree as well. And I personally think Barnsley just have a little bit too much for us, especially at home. Saying that, they have the 10th best home form in the league with 7 wins, 3 draws, and 5 losses, and they have scored 28, which is near enough of average of 2 goals scored per game. There was a game a couple of weeks ago, I remember watching the highlights of them, and they could have had 6 or 7. I think it was a 2-2 draw they got, and they could have scored 6 or 7, to be honest. When you've got players of the caliber of people like Nicky Cadden supplying your front line, you're going to be scoring 10 to 15 goals a season, I think.
Do you not think that's possibly the issue with Barnsley at the moment? Is they could have had, they could be scoring so much more. You look at the game that I looked at the other week was their match against Exeter where they lost 2-1. And it's really not like they didn't have the opportunities to win that game. Even if they concede the 2 goals to Exeter, which I seem to remember were pretty good goals. Barnsley should have won that game 3-2, 4-2. Really, realistically, if they were serious, title contenders, automatic spot contenders. So potentially there's not complacency, but a bit of wastefulness creeping in at Barnsley. I think personally.
Like if you're a big stats person, looking at the stats, Barnsley have scored 53 goals and conceded 33. So, but if you then look at the XG of that, so their XG is the 6th best in the league with 39. So they have overachieved their XG by 14 goals. So they score lots of worldies, basically. And I remember the goal back when we played them at home in a 1-1 draw. It was a worldie from about 25 yards from Herbie Kane. In XG, they are 6th, which is only worsened by teams like Fleet. Fleet would have got the worst. Wigan are 2nd worst. So teams like that near the bottom of the league, which is 40, they've only conceded 33. So their goalkeeper, which I believe is Liam Roberts or Ben Killip, have had a pretty strong season because that's 7 goals prevented so far this season. On the flip side, we are mid-table for XG with 34.9, and we've scored 34. And our XG conceded is 14th, which is 35.1, and we've conceded 34. So in terms of where we stand in the league, we're about right. And this game's either going to go 2 ways, I think. We've obviously played Saturday, Tuesday, Saturday, and we're going to be shattered on a heavy pitch. And Barnsley have had the week off, so I think that will work in their favour. Our away form is the 8th best in the league with 6 wins, 6 draws, and 4 losses. It just depends how much you take form into it as well, I suppose.
Yeah.
And the
I think it's one of them. It's one of them that sometimes stats don't matter. Sometimes it is purely just about how the teams turn up, and like you say, Leyton Orient might not have the legs. I think that draw, Barnsley winless in 2. That draw against Bolton, if we are considering Bolton as potentially favourites for the title. I don't want to give them that title just
Mm.
yet, but if they are, to draw against the potential league title favourites is a huge thing, isn't it? In terms of just saying like we've got this. Okay, we might have slipped up against Exeter, but we can. Everyone will start thinking I'm a Barnsley fan. But I trying to provide some balance to
Balance,
this.
yes.
To this, I can see Barnsley sneaking past 2-0. I think it might be a fairly uneventful game. Barnsley. You look at Stevenage. They're an outlier, sure, but Barnsley don't score. Well, Barnsley score, quite averagely compared to the teams around them. They concede quite averagely. I can see a 2-0 and it be sixth on the highlight reel of the games on Quest or whatever, and just do you know what I mean?
I know what you
We
mean,
can,
yeah.
we can hype it up. It's one of those games that we can hype it up, and then it could just be a 2-0, or it could just be a 1-1. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It could go either way.
And before anyone comes at me to say I've only picked them because I support them, in the grand scheme of things, if we win, we're 4 points off the playoffs, and everyone's like, "Oh my god, why didn't you cover this game?"
Yeah. If you win, that maybe that playoff dream is there.
Is alive. We've somehow got to calm our fan base down though. Somehow got to calm them down. Everyone's allowed to dream in football.
Is
But
that possible? Is that ever possible?
I remember back in testing the memory. I think it was 2011. We were in a similar situation to this in League One. We had 3 less points and we finished 1 point outside the playoffs. 3 years later, it happened again and we had 2 more points and finished 1 point outside the playoffs. And everyone's now tweeting this stat to say, "Oh, if we continue this trend, we'll be 1 point in the playoffs." Like, stop talking about playoffs. Stop putting pressure on the team and just let them play football. But I'm with you. I do think Barnsley will win the game. I've gone for 2-1, and I just think their individual. Yeah, I think their individual quality. I think their individual quality of Herbie Kane, Devante Cole, John McAtee if he's back fit, Adam Phillips. I just think it'll pull through. Which will be a shame.
It'll be uneventful, and then there'll be 10 goals in this game, and we'll just be thinking, well, we misjudged that one again, didn't we? So
yeah, we'll be off to a very, very good start.
Yeah, very possibly.
So before anyone comes at us now, we're going to do Lincoln versus Fleetwood, and the only reason I think we've done this is because of the run Fleetwood are on.
Yeah.
And Skubala has got his. Am I right in saying he got his first victory last week as well?
It's his 3rd win as Lincoln City boss, but his first since November the 29th, I believe, against Cambridge away. Which is mental to think that a manager who's gone on that run is still in the job. But like with Des Buckingham and Liam Manning, if you look at the record between Skubala and Kennedy, this is actually Skubala's 16th game in charge of Lincoln, which is exactly as many as Kennedy had at the start of the season. Skubala, 15 games, he's won 3 and lost 6. Kennedy has obviously 16 games, won 6 and lost 6 as well. So potentially only 2 wins worse off. So even though it looks bad on paper, it might not be as bad as it looks for Lincoln City. But I think that the big thing was that win, and I tweeted out after the game against Burton Albion, what a coup Rico Hackett was for Lincoln City over the summer. A player that was kind of on the fringes for Pompey last season, and he's come in and he's kind of really relishing this kind of just like pacey winger, sometimes forward, sometimes left wing back, utility, I can do everything role that he seems to have grown himself into. But I just think he's incredible. And the sight of Ben House wearing a Lincoln City shirt for the first time since I think August or September, I think many Lincoln City fans will have had dreams about that day. So it's looking on the up, but in a very Lincoln City way. And I think I can say this as someone who's currently wearing the home shirt. This seems like a game that will probably lose 1-0. if being completely honest.
I was going to say, because I'm just looking at some stats. You are 20th for XG with 30 goals, and you are one of the best defensive teams in terms of XG conceded in the league with only 29.9. So you're pretty boring, to be honest.
We're a very boring side. I'm not gonna lie. A lot of fans had expectations that we get in the Premier League. We'll finish 10th this season, 10th, 11th, 12th. We won't be worried from relegation. It's about building on to next season now, and just seeing what happens. I think for Lincoln, and again, like I say, I can easily see us losing this game. Funnily enough, we don't score in 36% of our games. We also don't concede in 36% of our games. But weirdly enough, we love a 1-1, which is our most common scoreline of the season. So,
and funnily enough, that is what I've gone for. So
is
far.
it?
I've gone for a 1-1 draw.
But well, like I said in another, I forget which was it. It was the Blackpool Oxford game. This game's crucial. If Lincoln score first, they're guaranteed to win. I think Fleetwood have never won in the league when they've conceded first, and of course they've not been outside the bottom four since the 12th of August, and have only kept a clean sheet in 2 away games all season in the league. So you think if Lincoln City can get that first goal, maybe with the pace of Rico Hackett or the power of Joe Taylor or Freddie Draper, whatever front 3-2 Skabala goes with, you think if Lincoln can get that first early goal, then it'd be a walk in the park. But if Fleetwood get that first goal, it'll be a scrap, I think.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the home form. You're 19th in terms of home form, 14 games, 4 wins, 6 draws, and 4 losses. And then in terms of the away form, Fleetwood Town surprisingly sit in 14th place with 3 wins, 5 draws, and 7 losses. And obviously, for Fleet, it's 2 teams that when you get that winning feeling, I suppose, when you've not had it for so long, it gives you that little bit of value, I suppose, in terms of you want that feeling again. And to be honest, Fleetwood have had 2 impressive performances, a 3-0 win over Port Vale and a 2-0 win over Bristol Rovers. So going into this game, it's going to be, I think, a real test for Lincoln. I know Fleetwood have the worst XG conceded in the league with 47, but that they're now within touching distance of actually getting out of the bottom 4. They did this last year, I'm pretty sure. They were always in and around, weren't they? That bottom 4.
Yeah.
And then somehow they stayed up by like a point. They obviously had a pretty fire sale January, didn't they? They lost Josh Earl, they lost Jack Marriott.
Jack Marriott is a big one, isn't it?
And they lost somebody else as well, who I can't remember who it was. And they didn't. Oh, they lost Tishman. I know Tishmanka didn't really play, but obviously he went back and went to Boreham Wood. It'll be. I think there might be that more togetherness, I suppose, at Fleetwood now. Charlie Adam obviously came in from a youth team at Burnley, and I suppose a fresh ideas, fresh outlook, maybe taking the pressure off the players, maybe giving them less information, possibly, because obviously Lee Johnson, he likes to think, I think he's the big bollocks, and in terms of managers being touted to be this next big thing 5-6 years ago, and being sacked by Fleetwood and Hibs in the same season, while his dad isn't being much more successful at Torquay. It's not been a good year for their family so far.
I think in the reverse fixture it was 1-0 to Lincoln, wasn't it, at Fleetwood?
Yeah.
So I do think Lincoln will come through this 2-0, and I can see Ben House coming off the bench and scoring in the 70th minute to wrap it up. You know, I'm probably speaking pure fantasy here as a Lincoln City fan. I'm manifesting what I think we all want to happen. I think we all want Freddie Draper to score in the first 20 minutes and then Ben House to come off and wrap it up. So I'll go with a 2-0 with that very specific storyline in mind. And if it pays off, I'm a genius. If it doesn't, then I'll get sacked in the morning.
I'm going to remember that now for next week when Freddie Draper comes off injured after 5 minutes, because that seems to be the Lincoln way.
That would be our luck, wasn't it, if that happens? So...
That would be very Lincoln, I suppose, to last 5 minutes and go, right, I've had enough. My hamstring's going to go now.
Yeah, that. Do you know what? It'll happen, and then we'll all cry, and we'll have no more strikers. But that's the Lincoln way, and proud to be an imp.
Right, so we're going to go on to the remaining 8 games. These won't be covered as in depth, but we'll give you a little bit of information on the game, and then we'll just give a score prediction. If you want anything changed for the format, obviously with this being the first preview show we've done, please tweet us at the Lower League Look, or when this gets tweeted out, you'll see mine and Callum's Twitter handles. If you have any ideas for what you want, please let us know, and we'll take them on board. So we'll cover Wycombe versus Peterborough first, and out of form in inverted commas, Peterborough versus a lackluster, I think, Wycombe Wanderers. The last game was in a lot of these games when we're doing the research. We'll play on the 21st of October, so it seems to be that sort of rerun of games. It was a 2-2 draw. Posh obviously have no winning 3. Wycombe won their last game, but still pretty shit. Don't score goals, and their fans still don't like Bloomfield. But I look at their squad and I still think they've got quality all over the pitch. I've gone for having said that though, I have gone for a 3-1 Peterborough win.
I just don't rate Wycombe. I really don't. Like they're a side, of course. They had that spell in the Championship, and you'd think, even coming back down, they'd be. I view them personally, probably naively, as a consistent top half side. Well, that's what they should be aiming to be anyway. And they're just really uninspiring. I feel like that's the word around them at the moment. Of course, like you say, they got that win last time, but again, I think I'd probably go 2-0 Peterborough just to be different. But I think it'll be quite simple for Posh.
Yeah, I think they'll probably be out for a bit of I'm pissed off now. Let's go score, have some fun, Peterborough.
It's a nice game to settle the nerves, isn't it? I think really with Wycombe, if you could pick a side to kind of just take it easy against, I think a lot of teams would probably pick Wycombe. Wycombe fans, please don't hate me, but I like you sometimes. Just be more interesting. Just be interesting, and I'll like you.
They've actually they've got the second or third oldest squad by 0.1. And obviously, I think they recruited quite well in January, but yeah, we've all gone for a convincing Peterborough win to put them back on track. The next one is so it's top versus bottom in Portsmouth versus Carlisle, and I think it's safe to say Carlisle are pretty doomed. 11 points from safety, 1 win in 15. Did all this recruitment in January, signing Harry Lewis, Luke Armstrong, Harrison Neal, I think it is, and they're all League 2 standard. It's basically like they've prepared for next season. Portsmouth won the reverse fixture back 1-0 in October. But they did get some bad news this week with their new signing, Tom McIntyre. And before I could move on to who else is out for the season, did you see the red card last week for McIntyre?
Oh, I think I did. Yeah, it was interesting.
Yeah, it's one of the worst decisions I think I've ever seen. I love the way, I can't remember who it was. I can't remember who it was against, but the whole of the opposition bench got out of their feet going, "Oh, Rafe!" And it's a brilliant tackle. The ball was flung in the opposite direction, and McIntyre is now conveniently out for the season with a fractured ankle, and the red card got rescinded. So that, and alongside that, they've also got Morel and Devlin out for the season as well. And their other centre half, I think it's Ricky Towler. He's also just coming back from an injury, so it's a bit short at the back for Portsmouth.
I think we've said there's signs creeping in that Portsmouth might be struggling. Of course, Callum Lang has been inspired. I think Callum Lang, the few highlights I've seen of him as a Portsmouth player, has been really inspired. So whether he's the player that just provides that kind of injective energy that Portsmouth tend to not get at this time of year, and he's the reason that they push on. I don't know. I know everyone's gone for a convincing Portsmouth win. Part of me just really thinks Carlisle will do a sneaky, but I'll go with 2-1 Portsmouth. I think though I can see a 90th minute winner for Pompey or something like that, and they'll shrug it off as an easy game, but everyone knows they got lucky because they scored in the 100th minute or something.
Yeah, I've gone for 2-0 to Pompey. I just think that I just think that individual quality and having a striker like Colby Bishop, I think will bail them out. I obviously I watched Carlisle play us last week, and it's a team devoid of any sort of ideas. The only real spark I saw for Carlisle was Gibson out on the wing, but other than that, they're pretty average and look destined to go back to League Two, to be honest. The next game is Bristol Rovers versus Burton, and not to sound horrible to you two teams, Bristol Rovers, your season is pretty irrelevant now. You're just sat there in mid-table on 40 points and are building towards next season, especially after losing your marksman and one of my favourite players in the league in Aaron Collins to Bolton. And Burton, you could do with a victory. You are 2 points clear off the bottom four, having played 2 games more than Port Vale, and obviously lost to a 10-man Lincoln City last week. Burton actually won the reverse fixture last time on October the 21st, conveniently again. They won it 4-1, which was pretty surprising, to be honest.
The thing that struck me about Burton is that they just, against Lincoln City, again, playing against 10 men, you can kind of see it as an anomaly. But I think they ran out of ideas. If I'm honest, I think this is what a lot of people said after the match, is that they ran out of ideas, and you see that a lot with teams in that kind of place. I think Bristol Rovers have got this one. I think it'd be a 2-0 one, a 2-0 to Bristol Rovers, and as someone originally, I was born in Burton. I don't really like them. I support their historical non-league rivals in Gresley Rovers growing up. That was my religious non-league side. So anything to hate on the Brewers, I happily will. So 2-0 to Bristol Rovers and a lovely smile on my face at the full-time whistle, please.
And I've gone for a 1-1 draw in this game. I just think it's I think Bristol Rovers are sort of building towards next season without Chris Martin, who got sent off last night. And yeah, I just think we'll see what happens. And obviously Burton won 2-0 against Charlton in their last 5. I just think I criticise Shrewsbury heavily, as we all know, and I'm very sorry, Shrewsbury fans. But
you're not, are you? You're not.
I'm not sorry, but Burton have only scored 25 goals, and if you're any team that near enough score less than 1 point goal per game, and I very nearly much included us in this as well, I don't like you. You're so boring. So.
Yeah, I can see Burton struggling. Obviously, they got rid of Dino, didn't they?
Yeah.
Earlier on in the season, he was the only exciting thing about that team, if I'm honest, with how eccentric he tended to be in a lot of his interviews. Of course, they do now have his name eludes me, but 6'7" striker. Just play it long.
Yeah, they
play it long.
Am I right in thinking they got rid of their top scorer, Lubala, as well, didn't they?
I think so.
Oh, it's Kyle Hudlin. I remember going to the playoff final, the National League one, when Kyle Hudlin was playing for Solihull Moors, and he had the biggest lump on his head from some sort of headbutt from someone. I distinctly remember that, and he was absolute garbage. I don't know how he got a move to, I think it was Huddersfield. I still can't work out that for the life of me. But the next game, I'm sorry.
If you're Burton, it's Route 1, innit?
Yeah,
this is the time to dig in and get scrappy, but we'll see. I've never supported Bristol Rovers before, but come on.
One thing I will say about Bristol Rovers, they've got a lovely new stand behind the goal.
Yes.
Yeah. So the next game is Derby versus my seem to be hatred team of Shrewsbury Town. I don't hate you, Shrewsbury. I just like taking the piss out of you, to be honest. Shrewsbury obviously got Paul Hurst in charge. He won his first game, and everyone was like, "Oh my God, Shrewsbury are back!" And then they conveniently lost to Cambridge last week. So everyone has now got off their high horse. And Derby County, obviously currently sitting in second, have that game in hand over top of the league, Portsmouth. Shrewsbury actually beat Derby as well in the reverse fixture, 1-0. But I do think Derby at home, with the quality they have, it's Paul Warne time of the season, as I call it. I have gone for a 3-0 Derby win.
I think it's that kind of thing, isn't it? Derby, Derby, I often look as the side that have everything they could ever need in this league. A bit like Portsmouth, they have everything they could ever need, and they'll still find a way to mess it up. It seems to be the Derby way. But again, yeah, like you say, I think I'd go with probably even a 4-0. I
4-0.
think it'll probably be not a walk in the park for the Rams, but I can't see Shrewsbury really posing much of a threat.
No, I think when you've got players like Conor Hourihane, Mendes Lang, Cashin, James Collins, Kane Wilson, Tom Barkhuse, and you should be winning this league pretty comfortably. But you've literally got prime bottlers at the top of the league in Portsmouth, Derby, Peterborough, all prime bottlers. So it's like none of them actually want promotion. They just want to be near the top of the league so they can just let everyone down again. So both of us has gone for convincing Derby victories. So we've got 3 more games to quickly cover. We've got Northampton versus Bolton. So Northampton, to be honest, to be fair to them, have had a pretty steady season sitting in 11th place. They've lost their last 2, but I'm pretty sure if you offered their fans 11th place with 12 wins, 4 draws and 13 losses at this way in part of the season, I think they would be pretty happy, to be honest.
A lot of them take it, yeah.
Yeah, and you've got a very, very talented player in Sam Hoskins. You've got Mitch Pinnock. You've got the Mark Leonard on loan from Brighton. So to be fair, I think this could be a really troublesome game for Bolton, especially after their long journey down to Cambridge on last night, for the game to only be called off after 9 minutes. So I have actually gone for a 1-1 draw in this game.
I think Bolton have. I think they've got the bit between the teeth at the minute. I think they won't walk it, but again, a 2-0. I'd go with a 2-0 to Bolton personally. Again, Northampton obviously lost their last 2. You know, they take it. Their fans would take it when they're 11th in the league, but it is. You look at the quality of Bolton. I think 2-0 to Bolton is a fair result.
Yeah, I've just gone off the draw. I don't know why I've gone for a draw, because Northampton don't draw games, but I just think the mental of getting yourself up for a game to last 9 minutes and then travelling all the way back to Bolton might play a part personally. But that'll be, I think that'll be actually quite an interesting game to watch. And the reverse fixture back in October, Bolton won that 2-1. So now we've got Port Vale versus Stevenage. Port Vale are obviously into the bottom 4 with 1 win in 8, and Stevenage, after their disappointing defeat, mainly because of the referee, according to Steve Evans, sitting in 6th place, but do have that game in hand. I think it'd be a very Stevenage thing just to sort of win professionally 2-0. Port Vale, as I've said, their goalkeeper kept them in the game last night. I really like Ethan Chislett. I think he's a really talented player, offers that bit of creativity. But when you've got literal dinosaurs up front in people like Ryan Loft, you don't really stand a chance. I just think I do think Stevenage will win pretty comfortably. To be honest, it would be like a Jose Mourinho style performance from Steve Evans' men.
I think it's going to be a really ugly match.
Yeah,
I really like. This is going to be a game of football that you either love to watch or you just, if you, I suppose, quite cliche. If you're Steve Evans, you'll love to watch this game. If you're Pep Guardiola, you've had nightmares after 10 mini cheddars about this game. So I'd probably go with a 2, like you say, 2-0 Stevenage. I think, yeah, they'll want to bounce back. And
the main question is who's going to have more possession in this game?
Just no one. I don't think. They'll just put the ball in the centre circle. Someone from Stevenage will kick it into the net twice. There'll be 2 touches halves the whole game. Yeah, 2 touches in the whole game. It'll be the 2 goals, and that's it. That's the game.
And the final game of the League One weekend is Wigan Athletic versus Exeter City Exeter and Wigan both in exactly the same form with 3 wins, a draw, and a loss from their 5 games. Obviously, you can't add the 8 extra points onto Wigan, but if you did, they would be sitting in 10th place, which, to be honest, with the troubles they've actually had this season, is not a bad season for Sean Maloney's men. Obviously, they had a little bit of a slump, and obviously, with how congested the table is, they did plummet a little bit. But they've still got players like Charlie Wyke, you've still got Stephen Humphreys. You've got that midfielder on loan from a Premier League club who begins with O, who I can't remember. You've got Sean Clare. The only thing for Wigan, I think, is the problem is Exeter. I think Exeter it'll be a 1-1 draw, but Exeter will score a set piece. And that's mainly because I don't think Wigan possess, while they've got Charlie Wyke and Stephen Humphreys, their backline I don't think possesses the physicalness, personally.
I mean, this is the definition of mid-table mediocrity.
Mm.
If I'm honest, you've got Wigan Athletic, aside on 7 goal difference versus Exeter City, only 1 point. Okay, you look at the points, whatever, the points deduction. But Exeter City, 1 place worse off, 1 point, and is it 1 point less, but minus 19 goal difference. Genuinely, this could be a Wigan 3-0, or it could be an Exeter 1-0. I'm going to verge on the Wigan 3-0, personally. But yeah, it's again, in terms of if we were structuring games for in level, not level of importance, but where they'd be on the running order of a match of the day, this will be quite low down.
Quite low.
Of course, this I don't know if we've covered Cambridge and Cheltenham. Have we been?
Oh, I do apologise. I am so sorry. That is literally, if I scroll down, it is there. I am sorry,
okay,
Cambridge
again,
and Cheltenham fans.
That sums up Cambridge and Cheltenham. If I'm honest, it's just a game that no one is hugely interested in. If I'm honest, I mean, it could be one of them that if Cambridge don't get a win, which then they're back in a bit of a scrap. I'm going to go 1-1 again. Like I say, I don't think it'll be a hugely interesting game. But again, if Cheltenham, like they seem to do every now and then, just find an extra goal, then and Fleetwood lose, then you're looking at Cheltenham back into 22nd and potentially only 5 points off Reading or Charlton. So
it's a shame because I predicted Cheltenham back in November to actually stay up when Darrell Clarke got them a little bit going. But that January window, I think, has just taken any sort of hope away as a pretty dire January, I think, for Cheltenham. They got loaned in, I think, with Joe Nuttall from Oldham Athletic, who was literally their 5th choice striker. And that's when you know you're in the depths of, oh shit, who do I know that I can just bring in to pray that they can score some goals? And to be honest, in terms of Cambridge, they've pretty gone the Neil Harris way. The last 4 games, they've beaten Fleetwood 2-1, drew 0-0 with Exeter. They then had another 0-0 draw, and then they beat Shrewsbury 2-1. It's just a Neil Harris sort of team. I've also gone the same. I'll go with a 1-1 draw. I think that would probably suit Cambridge more than Cheltenham. I think the only difference between the teams is that Cambridge have a goal scorer in Lyle Taylor, where Cheltenham don't. They have Matty Taylor. Obviously, he came from Forest Green, who are shit. And we'll go with a 1-1 draw in that one.
I think I don't mean to sound. There's a few games here that this game has the potential to be the most random 5-4 game. That's just the very nature of League One football. Is a game like this, or a game like your Wigan Athletic Exeter, could legitimately be a 5-4 just randomly. It won't be, I don't think, but a lot of these games have the potential to either be absolute blockbusters or really forgettable games this week, I think.
I'd go with the more forgettable, with someone like Neil Harris in charge, and especially with his record at Gillingham, which was questionable in terms of goal scoring. So that about wraps everything up for this League One preview. Like I said, if you have any suggestions for what you'd like us to cover, please do tweet us, and we'll have a look at getting them into it. But everyone enjoy your weekend, and hopefully not everyone, hopefully your team wins, except you, Barnsley.
And Burton fans.
Yeah.
It's the Lower League Look.